Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. Today we're diving into something absolutely fascinating, a groundbreaking paradigm from Muhammad al-Almasi's book, Conscio-cybernetics. Now look, this isn't just another casual take on meditation. It is a serious, unprecedented attempt to finally build a real sturdy bridge between cold, hard scientific rigor and deep, profound spiritual experience. If you've ever found yourself wondering about the true nature of human consciousness beyond the physical body and how we can actually understand it without falling into a trap of illusions, well, you are exactly in the right place.
Okay, let's dive into this. The big question we're tackling today is right here. How do we study consciousness from the inside, through direct personal experience, without just getting lost in the maze of our own imagination? Honestly, that's the ultimate challenge, right? For the longest time, we've basically been told that exploring the mind means you either need external lab equipment or you just have to have blind faith in spiritual visions. But what if there was another way? What if we could be active explorers of our own minds, experiencing extraordinary states of consciousness, all while keeping a really firm grip on reality and the scientific method?
That brings us to Section 1, the consciousness crisis.
You know, to really understand the solution here, we first have to wrap our heads around the problem. Historically, studying human consciousness has suffered from this massive, sharp divide. It's like a giant wall separating two totally contradictory ways of understanding who we are. On one side, we've got reductive materialism. This camp basically says consciousness is just brain activity, literally reducing every profound human experience to nothing but chemistry and neural signals. And then, on the flip side, we have unmethodical, random spirituality. Over here, pretty much every inner vision or strange feeling is accepted as absolute cosmic truth without any real scrutiny. That completely leaves us without a reliable compass to separate reality from psychological fiction. Both sides give us a deeply incomplete picture.
Now, there have been previous attempts to bridge this gap. The most notable one was conscientology. And hey, this was a really brave step forward at the time because it actually validated subjective phenomena, things like out-of-body experiences, and gave them real research value. But, as al-Almasi points out in his work, it hit its own limitations. It eventually turned into a closed conceptual loop. It sort of institutionalized itself and just stopped critically engaging with contemporary science and philosophy. So we really needed something way more flexible, something open to continuous revision.
Which leads us perfectly into Section 2. What exactly is conscio-cybernetics?
And this brilliantly illustrates al-Almasi's new paradigm, which acts as that missing bridge we've been desperately searching for between the science lab and our subjective experience. The cover art of the cybernetic archer perfectly captures this core idea. When you look at the geometric overlay of input, output, and feedback, it tells us something crucial. Consciousness isn't some mysterious, untouchable magic, but it's also not a blind, unfeeling machine. It is a dynamic, living system. Think of an archer. They aim, they note the wind direction, they correct their stance based on that feedback, and then they fire. Consciousness works the exact same way. It's a system that can be actively steered.
Okay, so to break down that rather dense definition into something a bit simpler, imagine your mind works kind of like the thermostat in your house. A thermostat constantly monitors the environment and corrects itself to reach a specific target temperature, right? Well, conscio-cybernetics argues that consciousness has this exact same self-correcting capability. We can actually observe it, influence it, and adjust it to direct our own internal states. We don't just have to be passive receivers sitting back and taking whatever happens to pop into our heads.
To actually study the mind effectively, this methodology relies on 4 distinct pillars that absolutely have to work together. First, you have experience. That's your raw data. Second is science, which provides the vital constraints so we don't just drift off into absolute fantasy. Third, we have philosophy, giving us the conceptual clarity and the precise language we need to actually understand what's happening. And finally, training, which takes all those theories and turns them into practical, tangible application. If you focus on just one of these pillars and ignore the rest, you are inevitably going to end up with a totally distorted understanding of consciousness.
Moving on to Section 3, Consciousness as a System.
Under this paradigm, we are moving entirely away from rigid, static definitions. Consciousness isn't a solid object you just hold on to. It's an event. It is constantly happening and changing every single second. The famous psychologist William James perfectly captured this when he basically said that consciousness flows. It's not chopped up into isolated bits. It transitions continuously, from focus to distraction, from fear to serenity, from waking up to falling asleep, and even into profound, deeper states like conscious projection.
Treating the mind as a continuous shifting flow, rather than just a bunch of mechanical parts, brings us right back to the true heart of the human experience.
Section 4. The feedback loop. Now, what's really interesting about this is how it serves as the absolute core mechanic of conscio-cybernetics.
This right here is where all that theory transforms into a seriously powerful, practical tool. You see, a consciousness practitioner doesn't just sit back, cross their fingers, and wait for miracles to happen. No, they set a goal. For example, maybe you want to achieve deep relaxation while keeping your mind completely awake. So you observe your current state, and then you make an intervention, like actively calming your breathing. After that, you get feedback. You ask yourself, am I falling asleep? Am I feeling tense? And based strictly on that specific data, you correct the system. This simple 4-step loop is exactly how an explorer navigates through shifting and complex mental states.
And that leads us to what is easily one of the most liberating ideas in this entire methodology. Failure is literally just a data point. Did you fall asleep really quickly during meditation? Did a sudden wave of fear completely ruin your out-of-body attempt? Look, that isn't a personal failure. It doesn't mean you lack some special spiritual talent. It is strictly information. Your system is simply telling you, hey, alertness dropped too low, or arousal spiked way too high. So what do? You take that raw data, you adjust the system, and you try again. Simple as that.
Let's look at Section 5, the researcher as instrument.
So how can we actually trust our knowledge when the subject we are studying is ourselves? It's tricky, right? The fundamental difference is this. In standard science, the researcher is totally separate from their subject. They look through a microscope to see the cells. But in conscio-cybernetics, you are the microscope. Your psychological state, your hidden expectations, your level of fear, these are all lenses through which your perception passes. You aren't just a separate observer standing on the sidelines. The observer is the instrument itself.
Because you are the instrument, you have to constantly clean your own lens. A researcher does this through strict calibration. You have to maintain emotional stability and practice something called phenomenological honesty. Basically, this means you objectively record exactly what happened, not what you wished would happen. And the absolute most crucial step here, keeping a massive distance between the raw experience and the interpretation you attach to it. So, if you see a sudden flash of light during a session, record that you saw a light. Don't immediately jump to the conclusion that you just received some profound cosmic message from the universe.
Which brings us to Section 6, an updatable map.
So, the crucial point is this. Alamassi's methodology has a built-in protective shield to prevent the field from turning into dogmatic, rigid thinking. Conscious cybernetics absolutely does not offer absolute metaphysical truths. The map is not the territory, and honestly, it is never finished. Whatever map we draw of consciousness, of other dimensions, or out-of-body states, it is merely a guide. It's not absolute reality. As new data and new experiences continuously emerge, this map is constantly being updated, tweaked, and refined.
This whole updating process happens through a continuous living knowledge cycle. It kicks off with a precise observation of your state, then moves to incredibly accurate recording and analysis. From there, you update your internal model of what's happening, and finally, you retest that new hypothesis through another experience. This dynamic 5-step cycle is the secret sauce. It ensures that a practitioner remains a grounded explorer rather than just becoming a blind believer. It keeps the vital, rigorous, scientific spirit very much alive, even when you are exploring the absolute deepest levels of spiritual experience.
Ultimately, conscio-cybernetics shows us that consciousness is not a locked box or some completely untouchable mystery. It is a living, breathing system that is fully capable of course correction. So let me leave you with this thought. If your consciousness is a self-correcting system, are you just going to remain a passenger influenced by every passing psychological current? Or are you ready to use this feedback, take the wheel, and actively navigate your own mind?